all happy companies are different. And I think one of the things that makes entrepreneurship hard sometimes is people are like, they want to do it how everyone else is doing it and how other people have done it in the past. And I think that's usually a mistake.
You're about to hear a conversation between two agency owners who collectively have over 30 years of experience helping brands sell millions of dollars. Enjoy the episode.
I don't know if we're going to do it in English too. I think that was another one that was a good point. Maybe we can do, since we're just creating content, we can probably do the English first. So let's just go with English. Hi, I'm Ramon Martinez.
Anyway, so I was thinking we can talk about the execution and then we can say, okay, and this is how you apply it to your company or to a mid-sized business that maybe doesn't have Barbie's reputation or whoever it is. This is how you apply those learnings and how you can actually implement some of that stuff within your company to grow it. I think that would be really valuable because then it's like a mixture of look at these executions, look how cool they've been doing them, look how they've been working out, and then how does that translate into what I can do and maybe someone with not a lot of resources. Have you seen Liquid Death? Did you see what that was about?
No.
So Liquid Death is a water brand. And let me show you. It's actually really cool.
Yes. I think I see it. It goes in a can.
It's interesting because it's like, it just goes against conventional wisdom. Like if somebody told you, look, I'm going to start selling water, like I'm going to put it in the can so it's cool, but it's just water. I don't know.
I remember the first time that I think I saw that in Miami. And yeah, it's $6 a can of water. Why would you be selling? But yeah, it has a following. It has the ex-husband of Sofia Vergara there.
Yeah, they're selling, I don't know how much they're selling, but I think it was around almost $100 million a year in water in this can. Like it's an incredible success story. And I think what's really interesting is they understood, there's a few things they understood. One is the power of the internet, because this is like a brand that grew on the back of Instagram and I don't know, I'm sure they're doing TikToks now and all these different things. And then the other thing is they also realized that a lot of the people that this was targeting at the beginning, I think the story is something like this. The guy was working with bands and he noticed a lot of these rock bands and like these people that are playing these music festivals. They all want to drink something, but they don't want to drink Red Bull or they don't want to drink, what's it called? Monster, the energy drink.
Oh yeah, energy drinks. They don't want to drink energy drinks that come in the can.
A lot of them were like the sponsors of the energy drinks. Like the energy drinks were sponsors of these music festivals and they had to drink it and they were there and they were offered free cans of Monster or Red Bull or whatever. And they didn't really want to have that. They're in the middle of a concert. So they just wanted water, but they didn't want to order water and then be seen drinking water. Yeah. Perrier, Evian water. And so I think he realized there's an opportunity here to maybe brand water so it looks cool and it looks more like a rock band, like something that a rock band member would drink, and then figure out a way to brand that and then to build like a marketing machine behind it. And so they don't take themselves too seriously. And so I think what they've been really clever about is also making fun of themselves. And this, you see this ad here? This is because somebody wrote online, I think it was Twitter, I don't know where it was, and they said, this tastes like, this is worse than the back sweat of a fat guy. That was somebody's comment. Like it was a negative comment that somebody left online. And these guys have the audacity to say, okay, Sidekick, you know what? I'm going to make this into an ad and we're going to bring people in and they're going to either taste the sweat off the back of a fat guy or drink Liquid Death and we'll see which one's better.
Oh, I love it. I love this. This is very, as you say, it's clever, it's niche. They know who they're talking to. Maybe Romulo Martinez would pay $6 for a gallon of water or whatever, but I know that people who would. I think that there's also that they do like rockers and gamers and stuff like that. So he's cool. Love the idea that you told me, which is the story behind it is clever too. It's maybe walking around with bottles of water wasn't as cool as just popping a can and just drinking it.
No, their marketing execution has been brilliant, and that's the reason this company has grown. I think what's cool about this is actually a startup, so they began doing things without a huge budget.
Here is its big thing. It's find your niche. Maybe his idea, the original, I'm not saying his or her idea, the originator of this was to pretty much sell canned water to artists, you'd say, or to rock artists. And then they already understood that their niche was going to be based on people who skull, suicide models, people who like look at that guy playing like Murder Your Stairs, and it's just like a hardcore animation. Again, they know you can have a feeling of people who ride motorcycles, they do type of thing. They understand that was what I stay with. If they pretty much position themselves in a niche.
Yeah, it's a niche thing, but it's also, I think what's really clever is they were willing to be different. And I think that's something that a lot of people that are in business are afraid to do. And I think it really pays to be different. There's actually a really cool book and a talk by Peter Thiel. Have you heard of this? Have you heard of Peter Thiel? Peter Thiel was one of the founders of PayPal. And then he was an early investor in Facebook. He's got some strange views about many different things, but he's a bit of a contrarian.
I think I have heard of him as of many other books that were shared to him. I think from ClickFunnels, I think they talk about it.
Maybe, yeah. And so basically, he has a really cool book called 0 to 1. There's this talk, I'm telling you, I'm going to send it to you and we'll put it in the show notes. It's actually very cool. He gave a talk at Stanford. It's a very good talk. And he basically talks about why competition is for losers. And he was a lawyer, and lawyers get tracked into these very narrow competitions to be the top lawyer at the top, become a partner in a big law firm, etc. And he was on track for that. He was a really good student. Then he went to Stanford Law. Then he was going to go into a big law firm and compete there to be the top lawyer and work like crazy. And he wasn't happy. He just turned around and left. And everybody was like, wow, I didn't know you could do that, right? I didn't know you could just leave. And he basically, what he says in his talk is, and he has like a phrase from a movie. He says, all happy companies are different. And it comes from like a movie where they say all unhappy families are unhappy in their own special way or something like that. Is that all happy companies are different. And I think one of the things that makes entrepreneurship hard sometimes is people are like, they want to do it how everyone else is doing it and how other people have done it in the past. And I think that's usually a mistake. And so let's say we build out a consulting firm. And so we're a new consulting company and we're going to sell the exact same thing. Accenture, BCG, McKinsey, everybody else is selling. We're just cheaper. We can even, let's say we grabbed a bunch of friends and they all worked at McKinsey or BCG or one of these big companies. And we left that company. We're going to start our own. If we're offering the exact same thing, all these big companies are offering, it's pretty much a very hard battle, because just like us, there's like another 100 companies that are doing the same thing. And I think what's really relevant about Liquid Death is they said, okay, we're going to be very different. The packaging, the can, the size of the can, the logo, the name, our marketing approach, everything is going to be different. What's going to be the same as the water. It's a commodity, but we're going to brand it completely differently. And this is a space where Evian's not going to go. No other water brand is going to go into that space.
As you're saying, from now on, anytime that you're going to talk about canned water, but probably the one that you're going to refer to as a point of contact would be Liquid Death as the innovator, starter, or something like that.
Right. And
the logo's in water anyway.
Yeah. And I think what's also really cool is one of the things Peter Thiel says in his talk is it's hard to see, but what you're really looking for in a business is a monopoly. And it's hard to see sometimes where companies stand because everybody's lying. And so he says, for example, you take the consulting company we just talked about, and they're branding themselves and they're trying to be different. And they'll say, no, we're the only ones that are using the secret formula we developed to understand your consumer better.
An algorithm, a unique algorithm.
An algorithm, or we're the only ones who know about this topic, and this is how we're building these things. And our team is super specialized. They're telling you how they're different. And so they're trying to say, like, we're over here and we're over here and the market's over here. But the truth is they're all very similar. And so he says, take, for example, Google is also lying, but on the other side of the equation. Google is a monopoly business, right? And they're saying, we're not a monopoly. We compete in like the world in terms of advertising. And if you take what the world spends on advertising, we're like 3% of that, or whatever the number is, right? We're very small compared to what everybody spends on advertising. And so they're trying to convince the government and everybody else they're not a monopoly. But when you look at the numbers for search engines, they're like 70, 80% of the market. And so what he says is it's really interesting because they're both lying, right? The corner bakery is saying we're the only ones who sell these type of donuts. And so we're different. He uses the example of a restaurant. He says, we're the only restaurant in Palo Alto that serves like, I don't know, English food or something. But that's true. But people don't just eat that type of food. Like you're competing with Indian, Thai, Mexican, Italian, like you're competing with all these different restaurants, or eating at home. It's very hard to compete in that market.
Did you ever read the book Ray Simon's Neck Started From Why?
I've seen that talk. I haven't read
the book. Might be a bit outdated because they do have a fake reference into that time when the iPhone came out. So you're talking about like 2012. Still one of my favorite books. Used to read it like once a year. The new book about the Infinite Games, highly recommended because it talks about what you're saying. If you're trying to think of it as a competition, you're not going anywhere. As a business, you won't go anywhere because you're already starting with a scarcity mentality, and every day who are you competing against reach? So you have that. So it is true. It's like you gotta develop your own culture and be happy and be different and try to achieve whatever it is meant for you to be. But the reason why I'm reading the book of Starting From Why is because it really explains the whole concept of what you're saying. I am the restaurant who sells the best tikka masala in Orlando because we come from this particular place that they have this particular cardamom that can only be found in this, and this is what we use. So then you're creating this story about one specific piece of why your tikka masala is different than the other ones. But then when you actually go and compare, there's no real difference within that. It's just a new bell and whistle. Which he explains is you could actually have a motor. Back in the day when they're talking about the iPhone, it's that the iPhone was a revolutionary item in itself. Yes, there were phones like a Motorola that had better memory. Or a lot of people were like, my battery dies, so you want to be able to change battery at the same time, which were things that people care about at that time. But the iPhone said, no, you can't do that. We are pretty much instigating the way that you're buying an iPhone and then you're bringing the service from AT&T before you used to go to get the service and then get the phone, whatever was the option. So they revolutionary this. But the whole point of this is that it's not that you're making a new bike. You're just adding a little trinket to the bike and you're trying to make it sound much better.
Yeah, so you're much more different too. Like you're trying to make it sound like you reinvented the bicycle. And I think, and so one of the things he says is it really pays off to be completely different. And I've seen it. Obviously, you can fail at either one, right? But I've seen, for example, there's a restaurant here in Colombia called Andrés Carne de Res. Have you heard of this?
Oh, I've heard of it. I'm dying to go. I've heard of it for so many times, for so many years. And I'm like, yeah, I really want to go.
Yeah, I think you'd like it. And basically, like, why is it so famous? They're totally different. You go in, it's totally different experience. The waiters, the way they're dressed, the decoration at the place, the food, the way they present the food, everything is totally different. Like it's very thematic. But at the end of the day, like it stands out from all the other restaurants in Bogota. And so whenever someone comes and they're coming in for a visit, they're not from here, everyone wants to take them to Andrés Carne de Res because it's culturally relevant.
you're also selling the experience. Like the way that I found out about this, I think the story was that if you go to Jerez, like there is a way that you can, you drink a particular drink, you get like a bracelet out of it. So then at the end, you can actually say how many you had because you had so many bracelets. And then it becomes talking about gaming like really last thing. There are things that makes them unique and as an experience. In this case, it's look how many I drank compared to my friends. That could be a game in itself, which I know people. But it is, you're selling a really different experience.
Yeah, and I think the more your business is similar to others, so for example, Andres is a restaurant. So it's very similar to other restaurants in that sense, right? Like they sell food. But the more traditional your business is, the more extreme you probably have to position yourself and be different. So for example, Google was such a new concept. Otherwise, there was other search engines, of course. But in terms of like the world knowing about it, and it's just this new thing, the internet, and this is the search engine that you browse through. It was such a new thing that at the end of the day, the business itself was completely different. But in the case of Andres, which might be small, medium, maybe even large companies that are competing in a very saturated market, the more they're different, the better. If you're a bank, you're a local branch, you're a regional bank, maybe like part of the execution has to be like, we're going to be completely different.
I guess we're talking about a differentiator or like a true unique value proposition. And I think that, but when you're talking about it, again, what is your real true differentiator? What makes it? I read the Google book, the story of Google, that pretty much explained that we were the only search engine that pretty much what it did is found what other people were looking that was relevant, and then we presented to them. While the other ones didn't do that. The other ones just give you a list of stuff, and then you would have to personally look for one-on-one to find out what you was based. When all you needed to know what are the three main colors that horses exist, and then they would find which one was the most relevant, and then they would put it on top. This is back in the beginning of Google. It was the uniqueness. Same thing with when you talk about your Airbnbs, the same thing that when you're doing Ubers, that a real, true, unique value proposition that you're giving the individual. I think one of my business partners, Frank Saus, he has a company called Hard Rock, and he's great at branding. But one of the things that he really tries to emphasize is like trying to, the world doesn't need there's already a BMW, and then there's already a Kia. And you can come up with a different bunch of other cars, but then if they're all going to be Kias, or they're going to be BMWs, you're never going to live in your own realm, and you're going to also just be, as you say, you become a competitive part.
Yeah. And all of this sounds like super easy to do, and theoretically, like of course, for Blue Ocean, you're a different company. But when it comes down to operating and executing on this, a lot of people are afraid to be different because it goes against social norms. We're not covered in tattoos, piercings, and dress only in pink. You know what I mean? We're very normal guys, right? But I think when it comes to business, people need to be okay with being completely different. I was looking at
comfortable with their skin. There's in Netflix, there's a video game documentary, and they explain how, you remember Duke Nukem? Used to be a game for computer. And I think the reason why I'm thinking with this is because of the water that we just talked about. But it was very cool because they were very alternative. They were like, you know what, we're just going to have people going around. And for example, they launched Wolfenstein, which was let's kill a bunch of Nazis. And then Nukem was let's kill a bunch of aliens, but in a very gory way. And then people were like, I don't know about this. But then look at that. Like being so different, it was like what really people really liked.
Yeah, of course. And you'll find your niche, and like Harley Davidson and all these different brands, like they're very niche, right? So I think, summarizing this first part of the episode, I would say Liquid Death is a super successful new water brand. And there are two lessons in there. One is be willing to be very different, not just a little bit, very different. So you can brand your business, especially if you're in a commodity or a very saturated market. And then I think the other lesson is the way they've executed their marketing by using social media has been quite brilliant. I think they understand that people's attention is on social media, online, and that's where their focus is. And they're doing If you look at their execution on for their social media and everything, they're posting a lot, and doing a lot of different things, and it's very on brand. Like it's very different from everything else.
I wonder. I haven't gone to a concert in a long time, especially a rock concert. But I wonder if they did some guerrilla marketing as well, where
Yeah, for
so
sure.
how Red Bull used to drive around the little trucks and stop by and give you a Red Bull. If they did that with like, the same would be hilarious. You're like, this is water.
I'm sure they did some of that, but I think that they did a lot of social media. Like they're
of course.
really good at that. And I think the person that built the company comes from working in an agency and doing social media, and so he knew what he was doing. So I think those are two lessons I think small, medium, and large businesses all through the spectrum can take: is double down on social media, obviously, but in a way where it really reflects your brand, and to try and be as different as possible. And I know that requires sometimes like a complete overhaul of, so if you're a regional bank, if you're going to really be different, then you really need to think about all the different steps, really just to the website, everything, how you're different. If you're going to do that, that's going to require a lot, but maybe you could start with a product and say, this is a product for millennials or centennials, and this is how it's going to work. And maybe that product is totally different. Just, you can start testing.
I wonder, the question here will be, again, being comfortable with your own skin. That brand doesn't speak to. I think it's a genius idea and all that. And of course, I'll have it. I'll drink it or whatever it's water. But it is the people who came up with this concept and activated it has to be a very natural, like they probably are already living a different life.
Yeah.
So
It's a lot easier.
be different, and it's be different, but be legit, be unique.
Right.
They are definitely doing stuff that it just speaks to them.
Yeah. And I think the creative process of coming up with the marketing, what to do, or the products is a lot easier if you're being true to yourself, because you're not forcing like a mind shift. You're just, that's who you are. And if you're the kind of guy that would build a brand called Liquid Death and talk about these things and be extreme in that sense, I'm sure you can come up with.
It's like you're shooting about water. Water is good for your health. Liquid Death. But
Yeah.
it's really cool.
And then it's like murder your thirst is what they're really trying to say, right? Like you kill
Like,
it. Anyway, so
if you can find a differentiator, it's sure.
yeah, that's one thing. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was I saw this person online that basically had a story that goes something like this. He was trying to help a friend build his Google Ads campaign. I think the company was like a tourism package where you buy like a package where they take you different places.
Go to Punta Cana, blah, 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 10 days in the hotel.
3 days, and then it includes the hotel and trips to the islands or whatever. Yeah. And so he was trying to buy some Google Ads to try and get some traffic to his website. But the Google Ads were super expensive. And they was just like $10 a click or something. And he was just like, I can't afford this. It's not going to work. What am I going to drive 100 people on my budget? So he was trying to figure out a way. And then he was like, okay, let's try long tail keywords that might work, etc. And they tried that. And I think they also tried like buying keywords from competitors. So I don't know if you've seen this practice, but if you sell a product and you say, okay, my competition is called Company X, I'm going to buy Company X.
That's a very common practice. I mean,
Very common. But that wasn't working either, right? Because the competition had bought their own keywords, and
it's going to still be $10 per the keyword. Right. So you're still noticing it.
Still expensive. So the solution they came up with was like, okay, how else would someone look for your product? And he said sometimes they will Google the airline and then ask, and so they'll say, for example, American Airlines tourism package or whatever the terms are. But it was combined with the name of the airline. And so that's a really long tail keyword that included the name of someone who's not a competitor, but somebody who probably helps you in your business. But it was a way that people were searching. And it had, I think it was like maybe 300, 200 clicks a month or something. And those keywords are super, super cheap.
It makes sense. We try to do that with our agency too, coming up with that. And I don't know, it has to be pretty good. It makes sense to do that type of in-depth search of maybe you know that you're trying to sell packages from Wednesday to Sunday, and there's only 2 airlines that are on Punta Cana on that day, and you know that it's going to be either the American Airlines or the whatever, you can probably tie in that with the search.
So what I thought was super interesting is, okay, you can go through long tail keywords, you can go through the exercise of, okay, they also can look for this. You can try doing competitors. You can obviously try and buy the words that make the most sense for your company, but then you can also, by understanding your audience really well, you can figure out a way to bring the audience towards you by buying keywords that nobody else has thought of. Just because, some people search with a combination of the airlines, so maybe I can position myself.
It's like I like it because it's like taking a step back. It's, again, looking at the macro view of it.
Yeah, like how would this person, or what are the things we've noticed about our audience? Oh, look, they always look for, I don't know, for example, agencies that have worked for Disney. And you're like, oh, well, I've never thought of that, but maybe I've worked with Disney. It's on my website, but I'm not buying that keyword. You know, and maybe maybe get clients.
The interest approach that your Facebook and all that stuff advertisement do, where it's okay, I know that most of my people, they are Apple users and they have a particular app. And then you can put that and then do that search back into Google and then figure that out. I don't know. It's interesting because you tell me about it. I'm like, how can I apply some of that to my own clients?
Yeah. That's what I think. Yeah. And I think it's a valuable lesson because I think a lot of people it comes back to being different and thinking differently, right? Like your mind just says, okay, I have to buy keywords. Let's just buy the ones that make the most sense. But sometimes those are super expensive and very competed. And so maybe people are looking for you in a different way that you haven't thought of. Anyway, so that was one example. What else have you seen?
I'm ready to talk to you about the best soccer team in the world, which is the Inter Miami. I'm laughing about it because we're just making fun of it. I grew up in Miami, so for me, it's a big deal that they have a team, but nobody, very fair weather at first. They really had a cool logo. They just started. David Beckham's been at this for years and years. All of a sudden, they decide to bring Messi to play here in the United States with them, and there are a lot of reasons why. They're offering him strategically, he's positioning himself to be like a Pelé for the 2026 World Cup that is going to be here. He has, when Beckham bought this, he had in his contract that he would have the opportunity to buy a team for $25 million. So he opened the Inter Miami for $25 million versus anybody else who would have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to have a soccer team. So then, the whole position. But what is crazy is, just out of the bat, by tickets, just as soon as they signed Messi, tickets to go watch this game, which used to be like, oh yeah, let's go watch the soccer. They increased 100% of the tickets. It became now the hot ticket to be. You want to go, typical Miami, you want to go there because it's just going to be seen and so on and so forth. But then why am I bringing this up? Because it is, if you are in Miami right now and you are not wearing pink or jumping in the bandwagon or just saying, the support or if you are a cake shop, you don't have the Miami pink cake shop, especially with a Barbie and all that stuff. I was just like, man, like there is so much that you can just take without having to pay for a sponsorship of, because if you want to use Inter Miami, you do have to pay their names for the brand, but just by saying, hey, I'm here, I'm a local supporter of Inter Miami, go Messi, and so on and so forth, you have a lot of leeway to pretty much use that as I'm going to say a gimmick, but leaving the moment of your city and embracing your business.
Yeah.
Some of the banks that I know of, they welcome him to the city, in their Twitter posts and their Instagram posts, and all of a sudden their Instagram posts are normal. They just welcome this individual, and all of a sudden their Instagram engagement just grows up just because the hot keyword at the moment for the city, for the target and stuff like that. Yeah, I think sometimes, although you probably can just like embrace it, even though you might be like, oh my God, am I just jumping in this bandwagon? But I think there is a lot that goes with it. And it's just associating yourself with what's happening and it's winning. And then you start getting like all these memes of like typical Venezuelan that was like, you know what? I'll never root for Messi because he was from El Barça. And I have always been a Real Madrid fan. And all of a sudden it's like, oh no, that's okay. Because Beckham was from Real Madrid and he's the owner of the business. So now that Messi works with him or with Real Madrid, like he cancels for neutral. So it's okay that you're a fan. There is a lot of just strategies that people are just pretty much justifying how they want to be a part of this whole new thing. And it's awesome that he started and he's doing great. Again, internally I'm a fan. But I think it's just a good opportunity for small businesses to engage in what is happening in their community. And even if, of course, we're talking about everything that is positive that you can engage. I would always tell my clients, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion, maintain yourself in this sports thing and all that stuff. You can definitely use this a lot. And it doesn't just have to be a messy thing for Miami. It could be a bunch of other things that, again, you see in your community happen that you never thought, how I can translate that into my own social media or my own brand experience.
Yeah. To piggyback on the back of that, right?
Yeah. It's a winning strategy. It's gaining a lot of views. It's gaining a lot of momentum. Support your local team. Try to engage with that. It's always very valuable. People they forget to do that.
Yeah. And I think what's dangerous though is you can't use Messi. You can't use Inter. You have to be very clever in how you position your brand in that context and talk about what it is, but without really using their image or their logo.
You can probably say on social media, you can get away with, hey, we support Go Miami. We live in the same community. Go Inter Miami. We wish you the best. Go Messi. And I don't think for the team, it's more appreciative than you jump in on that and then give them more momentum and then give them more energy that then going to give you a 6 with C's.
Oh, of course.
It's like,
yeah, but if it's like Messi uses our laundromat or Messi uses our bank, you can't go there.
No, you can't do that. Again, you can do the flamingo. You can do the flamingo cake and then put a number 10 on it.
Yes, right.
You get me? Like, you can still work within those parameters, again, everything has to be. Talk to your lawyer after this podcast. But it is one of those things that I feel that companies don't utilize enough, which is what is hot at the moment. Try to see a clever way of using it within your own marketing or advertising or communications.
Yeah, for sure. It's called news. I don't know what that's called. That has a name though. Is it news tailing? I can't remember, but there's a name for that where you actually grab the news of the week, et cetera, and then figure out a way to position yourself within that. Which, if we publish this on time, I don't know if you saw this. This is something different, but I don't know if you saw this, but yesterday there were, I think it was 3 or 4 guys, I think it was 3, that went up to Congress to testify on a UFO.
Yeah, I saw that.
Did you see that? Yeah.
The guy's like, you know what? I'm under oath. Yes. We have them. It's like, what?
No.
Yeah. I hang out with him all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And the testimony is crazy. Like, fucking crazy. Anyway, you could probably piggyback on the back of that, right?
Like, you can definitely say our
oh,
kicks are out of this world. Our kicks are out of this world.
All sentient beings welcome, kind of thing.
Yeah.
All sentient beings welcome. Super interesting news. I don't know if they're lying or not. Like, it's hard to tell. But
even if they're lying or not, and if this becomes like right now at 1 p.m. the day after, it's probably hasn't picked up the fire that it will. Imagine if tomorrow or the next day it's the fire we will. We're saying that this is the first podcast that talks about it was said here first. How we are the podcast for anybody who's a sentient being in the right.
And it's what you're saying, right? Like you could say, okay, this is happening. How do I take advantage of that? What do I need to do? What content should I create that's funny or quirky or or interesting for the audience, you can take advantage of this. You don't have to make fun of it. You can be like, we're a law firm, we're going to analyze the implications of the person who's lying and being under oath. And this is what happens if you don't do this. And so you can build a really interesting content based off of that. There was a psychologist I saw on YouTube that was like, they grabbed the video of the person that was talking and say, okay, what are the takes or what are the things that might tell us he's lying? They did a whole review of the video. Like it doesn't have to be like the funny, all aliens welcome kind of thing, unless that plays into your brand. But if you're a bank, you can talk about different things.
We had a client that was a body language expert. Pretty much her job was one of the products she sold was a package for lawyers to learn when they're doing picking judges, or they're picking jury, or if they like to learn the body language to say they lied or not. They put their hands in this, we put one a little bit, so and then that can kind of like tails and poker,
Yeah.
You know,
I don't have anything. Yeah, I think so. It's just really interesting what you're saying because it plays into that. Okay, how do I use that? We're a consulting firm. We work with, we consult in AI, for example. Okay, how does the news play into what we do? And how can we talk about it? Either funny, smart.
For you, it's in a very similar realm. Of course, I'm stepping outside of the box here, but if you think of it as who is into robotics, who's into AI, a lot of people who are into sci-fi. And I think that aliens and artificial intelligence and the way that we are doing a lot of artificial intelligence here and how we are just currently delegating some of our tasks to artificial intelligence to do it more effectively, and they're capable of doing it more broadly. What is your expertise? Like, I know a lot of people that we talk about this, as we were mentioning right now, would be interested in thinking like, how do I,
Yeah.
So artificial intelligence is happening. And there's also other sentient beings in the universe. So it sounds like every cool comic from the 1960s is becoming reality right now.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen. Let's make a comic. Let's make a comic.
Yeah, no, and I think, what I was thinking? It goes back to what we were saying. Even if you're a serious company, for example, and this isn't in no way a plug, but for example, we do audience analysis for like B2B companies. We could look for like the top B2B companies or the top companies whose people are actually engaging with the UFO and all of that stuff and sharing that content. And we could say, Amazon is number one. And then, IBM is number two. And, these are we could put together a report, for example, that says these are the top companies that are into the UFO conspiracy theory kind of thing, or this is the peak we're seeing in these type of conversations. Or CEOs still don't know about UFOs, but they know about AI. We could talk about all these things. Like it could be contextual to what the company is doing. Like I was thinking about my own company, but even for everybody else, like it could be contextual to what you're doing because it's a big thing.
I'm just thinking about this and just the way I think. So there's a huge law firm. I think it's the biggest law firm in the United States. It's called Morgan & Morgan. It's on personal injury. But a year ago, I think they launched a campaign that they kind of showed them in the metaverse. And it was like, Morgan, not only the biggest law firm in the United States. I think they claimed the world, by the way. But now we are the biggest one in the metaverse. So I think that if their competition is always to be the biggest one, I imagine if they're going to try to play out of this and now try to be the biggest tech to be law firm.
This plays perfectly into that. So I think if you're a brand listening on next week when we publish this, you can take advantage of a bunch of things that are happening. And maybe that could be, maybe we can close a show every week with that. Can you do it? Okay, what's the zeitgeist of the week? And how does that apply to?
I like it. Especially because if we make the content is going to be relevant and so on and so forth, and then we can give some ideas. So one of the biggest things that I have of why our agency exists, a lot of it is just people realize, hey, content creation is not easy. Content creation takes time, and it takes, and to do it with quality. You can always, again, you can create a bot that pretty much creates an AI that creates post a day and then put it there. Then you pretty much become a generic system that kind of creates that. But like create really good, appropriate content, you have this. And sometimes people are just like, I just don't have the ideas to do it. Or I'm not that creative as you guys. And of course, we're the most creative agency in the world, of course.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, I think this is a good thing because if we can actually just give them like some guidance on, hey, these are topics that you can actually involve in your social media or during communications. If it's relevant to you, this might actually work.
Yeah. Anyway, bueno, I think that's the show, right?
I think we hit everything. Yeah. Awesome.